So now we get into college football. Before we get into our picks, going on the Maryland game last week, you had a tweet that went pretty viral in the Maryland community, which I couldn't agree with more. After this Rutgers game, there was a million spots in this game where we could have won, and even at some points, I thought the game was over. Um, but I saw people bashing Locksley, which is just incredible to me that people watch this game and would say that this game was every loss is partly on a coach, I guess, just because he's the coach of the team. But there's no way you could have watched this game and say Locksley didn't get the guys ready to play or Locksley cost us this game. We had a million bad penalties. Like you said on Twitter, the drops, a lot of stuff just didn't really help. We forced 4 or 5 fumbles that didn't go our way. There, like I said, it was a ton of things that really didn't go our way. And on top of everything, we brought in a quarterback, Eric Najarian, I believe his name is, who came in at the beginning of the year, probably had no thought that he would play in a meaningful game, and came in and played really, really well for what he was brought into. We missed some throws. He didn't play great, but he made some big time throws that really could have won us the game. Jake Funk really has played great. On Twitter, you said, and Instagram, you said it's still unbelievable how he didn't get anything higher than 13 Big Ten. To me, every year I look at things. I know your senior year, I think you were first and second because there's a media and coaches. Didn't understand that. I actually tweeted that out that year and said it's incredible to me that I just think it's disrespectful to Maryland. It might be biased or whatever, but I just feel like they credit guys for other teams who really shouldn't be credited, and guys who are really good and have shown they're good don't get credited. But like I said, this loss to Maryland, it would have been great to see them win this game for me. But to me, this means nothing. We had a third string quarterback come in and play pretty well. We're still rebuilding. You want to win every game, but Maryland's defense looked great the whole first half. Tarheeb still is playing like one of the best cornerbacks in the country, and he's a freshman. So there's so much on this team that is young and still going to be here. And after we finish talking about this game, we're going to talk about some recruiting, which is going to have even bigger impact on this team. So, like we said, the players really made some guys made some mistakes, but overall, you cannot blame this game on Locksley.
The thing about it and it's the crazy part of that tweet. I sensed that coming early in the game. That tweet probably went out around midway through the second quarter, and it was probably after. I think specifically the play was when Dante dropped the wide open touchdown. I'm pretty sure Nigerian threw that one. It was like his second drive in the game, but it was a perfect play call. I don't know if the secondary blew it or what, but he was wide open in the end zone and he just dropped the ball. And those are the kind of plays that you can't have when you're a team who's already down so many players and you're still building your program and you're doing all these different things. Those are the plays that separate wins and losses. And it was that early in the game, and that made a difference because when the teams were so stagnant in the first half, right? The first half was what, 3-0?
Yeah.
That easily could have been 10-0. And then next thing you know, Rutgers with their offense struggling so bad, and their defense hadn't stopped us in the first half. Again, we dropped the ball. Lance had a pick or maybe 2, I think. And that separates the game. If we put that points on the board, that's 10-0. You put a team away early, and they know that they have no chance of winning that game. There never is a second half where they score 21 points and all that kind of thing. That team is dead. And that's the difference between teams that know how to win or teams that are still building a program and still getting to that point. Dante is an incredible receiver, right? But, he makes some crazy athletic plays and does all these things that we see and we're like, dude, he can be first team all-conference, all-American caliber receiver. But he's just not there yet. And our team isn't there yet, but they will get there, for sure. And that was a good sign. The thing about it is Rutgers this year is the best they've been since they've been in the Big Ten. They got Greg Schiano back. They got a face to their program. And they have made so much progress. I think they won, 3 Big Ten games?
Yes.
I don't think they had won 3 in the last 5 years.
I'm not sure if anyone won 3 games, but yeah.
Yeah, so however many games they won, it's more than they won in a really long time. And these are conference games we're talking. So that alone makes it a difference. Like you said, even late in the game, we lost. There were 2 fumbles that Darrell forced, should have been picked up. We didn't get either one. You can't let an offensive lineman jump on a forced fumble. It just can't happen. And then we get the catch fumble. They overrule it. Game would have been dead at that point. And they overruled that. And, when calls are that close, normally they just leave what the call was on the field. And honestly, that's what, obviously, as a Maryland fan, that's what I would have hoped happened. But fans don't understand that a coach can't make a quarterback or, throw a perfect pass. They can't make a receiver catch an open ball. Coach Locksley, more than likely, because, he's an offensive guy, he probably called that play that got Dante open. Can't make him catch it. On the crackback blocks, guys are talking about, Jay Sean being undisciplined and all this nonsense. Okay, here's the thing. The first one, it was slightly back towards the line of scrimmage, which you're not allowed to do anymore. And just Jay Sean has gotten a couple of those, I think, not even just this year, but I think he got one of those last year as well. It's an adjustment period. It's learning to play the game the new way that it's required to be played. So that's not like, I get it. You don't want him to make that play. You don't want that call because that affects the game. But that's not some terrible, undisciplined play that requires some insane level of coaching. It requires a correction to the way guys like Jay Sean have been playing the game his entire life. Physical and making crackback blocks. That only stopped like 2 years ago, I'm pretty sure. And that one, it's such a thin line. The second one, if you go back and look at it, the second one, he wasn't going back toward his own line of scrimmage, which made it a legal block. But again, he laid the guy out, which is what makes it a penalty. The coaching point, if you want to make one, all he can do is just run over there and set a pick, which, again, me as a coach, I would have never taught that prior to this year. I would have told my guy slap through somebody like that because it's football. That's the game. But in 2020, that's how you need to play, where you need to set picks like it's basketball in a contact sport. And that's just not the norm. That doesn't equate to Coach Locksley being, not good at disciplining his players and all that kind of nonsense. And we have a dirty team. Now, I will say, I don't know what number it was that twisted the guy's leg or whatever, and I'm not going to go into that. It didn't look good, man. And, I would hope that someone on that staff made a point of that and at least talked to him about it, because whether or not it was intentional, it didn't look good, didn't look hot.
Before you keep going, Locksley, speaking of that, Locksley brought him in the office. Yeah, like you said, we don't want to get into it, but Locksley, he's got a first half suspension. So if Maryland guys want to kind of complain about that, Locksley's taking that into his own hands and is giving him suspension. So
exactly, and that's what you expect of a coach, because he probably, I highly doubt he saw that on the field when it happened, because most people didn't, and it looks terrible. So, like you said, he did exactly what needs to be done and discipline that player, and I bet you it won't happen again. And if it does happen to someone else again, it's going to be an even more harsh punishment, and that's what it should be. But other than that, the plays that cost us in that game had nothing to do with discipline. They were guys being in position to make plays and not making them. We saw Darrell have a breakout game, and he made plays that could have changed the game. And because, guys didn't take advantage and recover fumbles, it didn't. Guys dropped open touchdowns. No coach can do any of those things. Someone coached Darrell and got him in position to get off the edge and impact the game. And Darrell used his talent to do so. No coach can make a guy pick up fumbles. Like that, I don't know what people expect. I don't know what people think coaching does. Coaching puts you in a position to make a play. He can't make you do it. And the fact of the matter is, all those coaches had those kids prepare for that game. They even had their third string, fourth string going into the season before, Josh opted out. Walk on, redshirt freshman quarterback ready to play in that game and come in and make those plays. You can't ask for more than that as a coach, especially when you've had one guy playing essentially the entire year. And then literally the morning of, all those things change. You were also missing essentially our 3 out of our 4 top linebackers. Ace is hurt, Chance out for whatever reason, and so was Ruben. The fact that we're even in a game, if it's the old Rutgers, maybe you say, okay, you still got to win that game, but it's not. It's a much better, much more competitive Rutgers team. So, you have to take all that into account. And at the end of the day, not everyone does that. People react on emotions more so than they react on what is actually happening. And I mean, it just is what it is, man. That's just the reality of where we're at today with social media and, knee-jerk reactions to everything that happens.
So before we get into the recruiting or whatever, I'm not going to repeat everything you just said because that's my exact thought. I agree with everything you just said. But on the Jayshon Jones blocks, the people on Twitter and on these apps, one, Jayshon Jones makes a difference on the field. So you putting him on the bench, what does that do? A. B, every one of these guys on Twitter or any one of these guys on 24/7, wherever it is that are critiquing it, I would love to see what they want to teach him when he's on the field to block. The football sport as a whole has changed, and every week you see guys get called. I understand the safety of football makes sense to me. Like the main just of it makes sense to me, but the way they are enforcing it does not. Like you said, the first block was, but it wasn't like Jayshon Jones went out there and said, "I'm going to hurt my team with this. I'm going to make this play about me." No, he was trying to help the team. He set a crackback block, made a mistake on the first one, and the second one, as you said, was a legal block. Jayshon Jones is on the field for a reason, and Locksley going and benching him would not do one thing. Locksley maybe pulling him aside saying, "Hey, I don't even know what you want him to say to him, just because Jayshon Jones is playing hard football. Jayshon Jones probably has been taught his whole life blocks like that are good, and all of a sudden in college football now, if you grab somebody too hard, if you pull their flag off or you pull their towel off, you can get a 15-yard flag for it because that's how the refs feel." Over the years, we've seen horrible, horrible officiating, and I'm not even going to blame it just on the officiating. The rules, this Maryland game, as you said, it was against a good Rutgers team, so I'm not gonna just say blame the refs on this one. But I've watched games throughout this year. I can go back Miami Clemson game. I understand you do not want guys hitting to the head, and if somebody blatantly goes out and takes a shoulder to someone's head, they should be eliminated because that's understandable. But if a guy is bending over or a guy is trying to make a tackle, and when he goes for the tackle, the dude's head's not there, and all of a sudden the dude's head moves and he hits him in the head, guys for that one should not be eliminated. This doesn't really relate to Jayshon Jones, the crackbacks, but it's a similar rule. It's for safety. And guys, like I said, I just think they're trying to make the sport a little bit less of what it is. It just baffles me. And back to the main point, Jayshon Jones, the first one was probably crackback block, but that's been in football his whole life and ever since I've watched it until the past few years. And the second one wasn't even the right call. And you have people online tweeting out and saying bench him, or oh my God, just unbelievable. Without these blocks, we win the game. No, that maybe, but no, that's not what lost us this game. Those crackback blocks, they were maybe a small part of it, or everything in a football game leads to a win or loss. So these people on this app saying this, it just frustrates me so much. And I don't understand how you sit there and watch a game. One, Jayshon Jones is also young still. He came off ACL injury, but like I said, he is our receiving core is great. They made some mistakes, and that's what it is. But it just baffles me the way these people think or even tweet. Like, if you have it in your mind and you put it on Twitter, I don't know what they read and say, yeah, this is a good tweet, this should go out.
Yeah, man, it's tough. Like I said, people react emotionally more than anything, and I mean that just creates so many issues. And people also just have no idea what they're watching. They just see flags and they see things, and then they come out with words that make no sense. Like, that's like me going to a computer technician and oh, you're doing this wrong. I don't know what the heck I'm looking at. What I'm like, what right do I have to even say anything? Yeah, you're a fan and you can be upset that we lost. I'm mad too. But to get out there and just, say outlandish things and have no idea what you're talking about. Like I said, I saw it coming in the second quarter of the game before, the outcome was finished. So all that stuff doesn't surprise me in the least, man. Football has changed in so many ways just because of the blocking, the not being able to hit guys, and really just the sport isn't the same, man. Like I said, the way we were taught to play as kids, me specifically more so, just because I'm going to speak on my own experience, was a completely different game in terms of level of physicality. You know, yeah, like I don't want to injure the guys that I'm playing against, but it's not a nice game. Football is not for people who want to be, friendly to each other. It's just not at the end of the day. And if you think it is, you might want to go, play Madden or something, because that's the only place it's really friendly.
Yeah, I'm gonna move on to the recruiting now, but like I said, I couldn't agree more with anything you tweeted and said throughout this whole episode. But so now for recruiting, we haven't really talked about recruiting this year, and I don't want to talk about it for too long because I don't want to take too much of your time. But Maryland, we're gonna get away from the negative stuff. Coach Locksley, like I don't want to keep bringing it back up, but the fans that said anything about Locksley on Saturday, I don't know if they pay attention to recruiting. I mean, I guess they do because they can critique everything else, but when it comes to recruiting, you don't hear much of them. Locksley has done so much for this program recruiting than anybody ever has. I think this is one of the highest since 24/7 Sports had made a recruiting a thing online. This is the highest class Maryland's ever had. Last year, he goes and shocks the world, bringing in Raheem Jarrett, who has been great this year. And it was expected. He was like the number 2 receiver in the country on 24/7 Sports. But this year, earlier today, it's signing day. He just brought in Brandon Jennings, who was once committed to Florida State, and then he had committed to Michigan. Taking a guy, he's a top, I think he's number 7 or 8 linebacker in the country, inside linebacker, but I think he can play outside. I think he does a little bit of everything. Bringing in a guy like that, you're taking him from Michigan. He is pulling him away from Michigan, and that's never anything Maryland fans have ever been able to have, where we're coming in, and this isn't a local guy. This is a kid who is coming from Miami or Florida, the Florida area. I'm not sure if it's exactly Miami, but they're bringing a guy in from Florida, which Maryland probably had absolutely no chance at 4 years ago or 3 years ago when Locksley wasn't here. So to me, that just shows Locksley's different to this program, and Locksley's also, everything in the media about Locksley has been good. Like, Locksley has not done one bad thing in the community, and I just think he's going to have such a different effect on Maryland overall, as he already has. And I haven't even talked about Terrence Lewis, the number 1 rated inside linebacker in the country, was formerly committed to Tennessee, decommitted from there, got a bunch of crystal balls to Auburn, and then Auburn fired their coach, and now he's dropped his top 2, which is Maryland and Tennessee. Right now, I read that Maryland's trailing in that recruitment. Trey sent out a couple of tweets, so if he comes to Maryland better gift Trey something. But if Maryland, like I said, I heard they were trailing, but I heard it's like 45 to 55%. Nobody really knows anything yet. And I think he's going to make his decision on Friday and then come out on January 2nd and say where he's going. But to me, there is never any chance in the world before Locksley got here that Maryland brings in the number 1 inside linebacker in the country if he is not from the DMV area. That Maryland has never been able to get 5-star recruits straight out of high school. That just has not been a Maryland thing. Maryland football has improved from where they were over the past 10 years. At one point, they were really good early on, and then it's been a while since they've been great. And I think with Locksley, he is changing everything. Like I just said, Terrence Lewis, if he goes to Maryland, I will be beyond ecstatic. I won't know how to act. But if he does not go to Maryland, we were just in the top 2 for a kid who was the number 1 rated inside linebacker in the country from Florida. That's not ever something Maryland has been in. So I just think, back to what we were saying about Locksley as a coach, it just, his recruiting and all the other guys he's got, I didn't even mention. He's gotten a ton of good recruits this year that already have signed. And he's also changing. We've seen a lot of guys leave the DMV area. The DMV area has great football. But we've seen some guys commit to Tennessee or commit to LSU or go far away. And Locksley has said, okay, I'm not going to over-recruit that, and has brought kids in from Florida. So Locksley is just changing the recruiting game, and I really just love it about Locksley, and it's making me very excited.
Yeah, man, I think, off the field, he's done all good things, and on the field, we've seen progress. I think people don't realize the offense has looked considerably better this year than it did last year in year two, with another new quarterback, a young kid who had never started before, which is all things that bode well for the future of the program as a whole. Because you get your own guys in, you get young players, and you develop them, and then in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, you got a really strong team. That facility is going to be finished in the next year or so, and that's gonna be a game changer for us. And that's a tool that you have without having to say anything. You just say, hey, look, this is where you'll be every day. This is what we provide to you, and it'll be something that will really put us up there in the top echelon of schools. Like you said, a lot of Maryland guys have left, gone to Bama, gone to LSU, gone to whatever top program. He'll be able to keep more of those guys. This is 2 years in a row now that he's been able to get the number one player in the state of Maryland, and then he gets that top linebacker from Florida, and then potentially gets the number one linebacker in the whole country. Those are things that you need. And those are program shifters, and they shift the future of what we're trying to do and what Coach Locksley is trying to do. People need to understand how much value is in that, along with the on-field production. Now they get one more chance to play on the field, and maybe that'll be something that sets the difference for the couple recruits that aren't early signees, and he's able to swing that kid from South Florida and maybe a couple other guys. Because recruiting is not over. Today was a huge step, but there's some guys still to land.
So now, before we end this, for our picks, this week, Maryland plays Michigan State. I'm going to take Maryland. I believe Eric Najarian will start at quarterback. I'm not 100% sure. I still think Lance is good, and I think he's very good and can do things other guys can't. But I think the Terps, and as a fan, I liked what I saw out of Najarian, a guy who probably came into the day thinking maybe there was a chance he played, but came into the season thinking there was no chance and came in ready to go. Made some good throws. Some drops hurt him. It wasn't even his fault. Threw no interceptions. Like I said, I think Maryland's offense is going to play great against Michigan State. And Michigan State also lost to Rutgers earlier this year, and Maryland had this Rutgers game won in a bunch of different ways. So I think Maryland's going to beat Michigan State, and I think they're going to beat them handily.
Yeah, man, I think the same thing. I think, I don't know if they'll be able to get any of those guys who missed last week back. But like you said, if Najarian comes out there and shows that same competitive fire and, really that's it, just competes. That's what he showed last week, is that, he was up for the challenge. Something that few people ever would really be ready to do, to come in off the bench, being an afterthought guy in so many ways. And he showed that he was prepared. He showed command of the offense, and he competed, man. He was out there running. I don't know how good of an athlete, people thought he was before, but he was out there running for first downs, making throws outside the pocket, and commanding the offense, which is what you want out of any quarterback. I agree, man. Lance, once he gets some confidence under his belt, this has been a tough year because he was competing with Talia for the job, and obviously that didn't go his way for right now, but there's going to be a role for him. There's a reason he was a 4-star guy, and there's a reason that everyone's so excited that he got brought into the program. But he's going to make a difference somewhere, some way, and maybe it's on Saturday in a different role. They'll figure that out, and I definitely got them taking the win overall.